Is it ridiculous? Yes. Is it wildly historically inaccurate? Yes. Is it terrible? Yes. Did I hate it? Surprisingly, no. Hi friends, how are you? I hope you're very, very well. Diana the Musical has come to Netflix. It's been on Netflix now for about 2 weeks. I've seen this not once, not twice, but 3 times a lady. Diana the Musical is a new musical about Princess Diana. It's kind of becoming a bit of a meme already. Certain clips of it have gone viral for how kind of wacky and out there it is. As an English person, as a theatre fan, as a Netflix account holder, I felt it was my duty to talk about this topic. Diana the Musical was written a couple of years ago and it opened only for a very short run at La Jolla Playhouse at the Professional Theatre, which is basically on the University of California campus in San Diego. The show opened in February, it was due to close in March, but they kept extending it. So I think it had about a 6 or 7 week run. Just under a year later, it opened at the Longacre Theatre on Broadway. It did a handful of performances before the Broadway shut down, and it had never even fully opened on Broadway. It was just in previews. During the pandemic, when Broadway was shut down, Frank Marshall, one of the producers, who's also a film producer, was like, do you know what? We've got this show. Broadway's shut down. We don't know when it's going to reopen. We've got the cast who all want to perform. Why don't we just record it? This was just after Hamilton had been announced that they were going to bring forward the release date for the recording a year early. And so he was like, this is a great opportunity. So in the summer of 2020, the cast all went in for 4 days and they recorded the show. They did it without an audience, and here we are in 2021. The Proshots has been released on Netflix. It's completely unheard of. This has never happened before, that a show that hasn't even finished its previews and hasn't yet opened on Broadway has got a full Proshot being released to Netflix of all places. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, streaming service in the world. So that's kind of massive. And a lot of people are saying like, why this show when shows that have been running for decades still don't have a Proshot? Frank Marshall basically was like, well, I know people at Netflix and I wanted to do it, so we made it happen. It is kind of crazy that this show, basically when a show is in previews, there are changes being made most performances. And it's crazy that a show that was still in previews has now been immortalized forevermore. And I think that's really interesting. And I would be very interested to see how this affects ticket sales for the show. Like, there's a forever long debate around bootlegs and Proshots and do they harm ticket sales? So it would be interesting to see how a show like this, it's still not opened fully on Broadway yet. It opens next month. Will people see it on Netflix and be like, 100% have to see that? Or will people see it on Netflix and be like, whoa, not wasting over $100 on a ticket to see that? I'd be very interested to know how the show sells when it opens. Okay, so the actual musical itself, straight up, the lyrics are tragic. And that's the only way to describe them. Just a complete and utter travesty. I mean, there were times when I was sitting there like mouth wide open, like, did I really just witness that in a musical about one of the royal family? It's just so ridiculous. Like, not Princess Diana calling Harry like my ginger son, and not Diana saying that's what happens when you marry a Scorpio. I think the best line is when the paparazzi are singing about getting a photo of Diana and they use the line, better than a Guinness, better than a wank. I mean, if that's not British culture, I don't know what is. Even despite all that, I still get this musical. Like, I don't hate it. It was awful, but also kind of amazing at the same time. Like, I get it. I understand why it was made, and I understand why people will like it. I really think people will like it. I mean, maybe I've just lost it, but like, I get it. I mean, I do think that, in all honesty, the main reason why this story has been made into a musical is because everybody loves Princess Diana and people are interested in the story of the royals. Yeah, and you know, tourists who go to Broadway and want to see a Broadway show, they more often than not like a story that they already know. So when it's like, oh, I love Princess Diana in a Broadway musical, oh yeah, definitely. So I understand it, and at the end of the day, Broadway is a business, and I understand people going to New York City, if they're not necessarily musical theatre fans but they want to go and see a Broadway show, picking Diana, and then I can understand them quite enjoying it. Have I lost it? It's camp and it's ridiculous. It's like everything you expect of a musical. Do you know what I mean? It's got big show numbers and it's kind of grand to watch, and the music is completely generic noughties pop rock musical theatre. So again, it's like you're watching them singing the songs and you're like, I know this song. Oh, because it sounds like 50 other musical theatre songs. It's got all of the same structure and chord progressions and all of the kind of needed elements of a musical. You know, I get it. I just do. And if you kind of forget that the story that you're watching is about real people and you kind of see it as just a piece of entertainment, then I understand going and having a good time. I feel like it would be a very good like night out with the girls. Let's go and see the Diana musical. I have to say, I did see the book writer, Joe DiPietro, say that he doesn't think he made a cheesy musical. And I have to ask him to rewatch it because, I mean, hands down, hun, you wrote a very cheesy musical. It was very cheesy. But I kind of like it in that way. It's very kind of tongue-in-cheek. And I mean, it is massively historically inaccurate. The timeline is all over the place. But again, like, I probably only know that because I'm British and I was brought up seeing documentaries on TV about the royals, and it's like our very recent history. Like, it's kind of ingrained in us to know that stuff. But I also understand people who are from different countries or like American tourists going and seeing the show and not seeing those things and not being bothered by them. But when you look past that, I mean, as I say, the book writer did say that he wasn't intending that to happen, but it did. You know, I'm embracing it. Some parts were quite charming. Yeah, as I say, like, the music is very repetitive, like a lot of the songs sound the same, but the cast are really, really strong. And when Ro Hartranft is singing the songs, like, I don't care that they're repetitive because he has a beautiful voice. Loved him. I thought he was wonderful. His voice was just amazing, and I loved when he was like angry and mean. I love an angry, mean musical theatre man. Let's be honest, we all know that. And I thought his voice was just beautiful. The whole cast were super duper strong. Erin Davie playing Camilla was great. Her accent was amazing. I have to say, accents across the board. Like, the girl playing Diana, Jenna DeWall, is English, but everybody else, I thought the accents were really, really strong. And like, I both love and hate a bad English accent. I hate it because it really takes me out of the character and like I stop. All I'm focusing on is the accent, but I love listening to a cast recording with someone with a bad English accent because I like singing along in their bad English accent. Kinky Boots on Broadway. But the accents were really, really solid from pretty much everybody in this show, which I was very impressed by. Yeah, Jenna DeWall was amazing in this show. It's such a huge role for Diana. Like, she literally is on stage so much, and there's so many costume changes, there's so many solos. Like, it's a big emotional journey for her to go on as well, and I thought she handled it so well. She seemed so like in control of the piece, and I loved that. Talking of the costumes, as a big Diana fashion fan, I loved the attention to like getting really good replicas of like very famous outfits that Diana's worn. I really loved that. But the costume changes were so well done. I mean, right, you know on like Britain's Got Talent or whatever, when they do like, it's someone's act that they're really good at changing clothes. Honestly, the costume changes in the show, I was like, that should be on Britain's Got Talent. I loved it. I thought it was so amazing. The ensemble, I will say, were giving me 100%. So much that at times I was like, are you okay? I mean, the energy that the ensemble were giving was just, whoa, like off the charts. There was lots of like, Diana and Charles would be having a conversation and the ensemble would be in the background like, are you a staff member in the royal household or are you in the ensemble of Legally Blonde? I can't tell right now. I did think the choreography and the direction was like a bit misplaced at times, and I cannot believe Diana the Musical had the same director as Come From Away. That kind of like blows my mind because it was so different. I liked the set. It was quite simple. They had like big royal gates that kind of stayed in place and then had little bits of set coming in and out, and I liked the simplicity of it. I did think about the choreography that like sometimes it was too ridiculous and it took it into a joke. Like, Charles and Diana go to an evening to listen to some Bach at like the theatre or whatever, and the whole time Diana's sat there, she's thinking like, oh, I wish you were Freddie Mercury, I wish you were Elton John, and then like she gets up and like rips off half her skirt and does this like mad dance routine where she like gets up and starts playing the cello at one point. How can you say this you were not intended to make a cheesy musical when you have Princess Diana playing an electric cello in a mini skirt? And I do think sometimes it took it a little bit too far the other way, but also like I don't mind because it was so camp that I was able to enjoy it. The historical inaccuracies were massive. I do think if the history of it isn't as ingrained, then it would probably be fine. Though it did annoy me how like, I feel like they tried to make Diana come across like a commoner, whereas like, I'm sorry, she grew up with the royals being family friends. For all of you who aren't in England, you don't just grow up with the royals being family friends if you're not, you know, pretty high up on the chain. I'm a commoner. The AIDS song. There is a song where Diana goes to an AIDS facility to meet men who have the virus, and it was a very famous moment in Diana's history. It was absolutely horrendous, and that's all I can say on it. It was so badly done, I thought. Just a complete travesty. I feel as though it was written by people who didn't quite understand British culture and then Googled things that like British people like, and they're like, oh, English people really like Coronation Street. Let's have the Queen talking about going and watching Coronation Street. And it's just like, it's a bit... I did appreciate that the end of the show didn't overdo the tragedy of her real death and what happened, and it kind of happened quite quickly and it wasn't dwelled upon, and I appreciated that because I was really dreading how they were going to do it. Now, something that really struck me about this show was I feel like there was kind of a statement being made around like the paparazzi and everybody really sensationalizing the life of Diana and making her life difficult and not giving her a private life and everything. And yet this is a musical about her life where they talk about some really heavy things like unaliving herself and eating disorders and really heavy things that happened in her life. And they were sensationalized in a musical. And there was something very meta about that. Like, I'd be very interested to know what people's opinions are on that, because do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, the musical is basically saying, oh, it was terrible, wasn't it, that she never had a moment of peace and she was going and doing the worst job in the world, and you know, all she wanted was like a normal life with a normal husband. And then you're making a musical and we're sitting there watching it being like, oh my goodness, did you see that bit where she just punched that window through? Oh my god, did you see that bit where she's like having mental health issues? Do you know what I mean? I'd be very interested to know what people think about that. Overall, would I go and see it if it was in the UK? Yes. Like, if I got a free ticket. I probably wouldn't pay to see it. Do I think it would work in the UK? To be honest, I don't think it would have a UK run, like in the West End. I mean, maybe I'd be wrong, but that's my opinion. Do I think American theatre and Broadway tourists will like it? Yes, I do. Do I think it's harmful for a show that has kind of had such a negative response being on a major platform and being what a lot of people are going to see of Broadway? Do I think it's harmful to the Broadway community? No, because I think people who think that that is all that musicals are would always have that opinion. And I think there are other great Proshots out there. There's Hamilton, there's Miss Saigon, Come From Away. You know, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So even if you don't like Diana, there's going to be something else that I'm sure people would like. Do I think Diana would have liked it? I don't know. I actually genuinely don't know, because I think that she was able to have a laugh at herself. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Diana would have liked it? This is all just my opinion, so it really means nothing. But did you watch it? Are you going to watch it? I would be very interested to know what you think. I feel like there's been so much theatre stuff recently that I'm like a bit overwhelmed, but if there is anything specifically that you want me to do a video on, I definitely will. Sorry, I've been a little bit in and out recently. It's just been a time and a half, but I'm back and I'm ready to go, and I will see you next time. Love you lots. Bye.